How's it going, everybody? This is Jeff Bain with Team Reeling the Blues. Well, wintertime has finally set in on us, and it's been a while since I put a lot of videos on. The reason why is I've been building this shop. I finally got my shop finished, got a bunch of my honeydews done, but now it's time to start fishing again. Well, the purpose for this video is to discuss things you should do before wintertime sets in. Now, I'm in the South. I'm around Charlotte, North Carolina, and here we don't really winterize our boats, us fishermen anyway. We look forward to the winter seasons. But around here we have a lot of tournaments during the wintertime. And the worst thing that can happen is you show up to a tournament and it be 14, 15 degrees. It's rare here, but we do have times like that. It brings me back to a tournament we had 3, maybe 4 years ago. Literally, there was half a dozen boats that broke down at the ramp that weren't able to blast off. They just used them the night before with no issues, or the week before, no issues. Then those cold temperatures set in. So what we're going to discuss today is what you can do to prevent that from happening to you when you get to a boat landing. Now, me personally, I never, let's say, tune my boat up in the spring. I'm the direct opposite. I do all of my tune-ups right before wintertime. And the reason why is because wintertime is the harshest time of year, and that's also when I do the most fishing. So let's go over what I do to make sure my boat works when I get to the boat ramp. First thing we're going to talk about is batteries. On my particular boat, I have 4 batteries. I have 3 deep cycles, and I have 1 starting battery. Now, wintertime conditions will suck a battery down quicker than anything. So, first thing I always check, I check my onboard battery charger. If you don't have one, it's a great investment, especially if you're going to fish during the winter months. Because that onboard battery charger also helps keep those batteries a little bit warm. That constant charging and cycling keeps them from getting really, really cold. And as long as you can keep them from getting really, really cold, they'll last a lot longer. So that's the first thing I check come wintertime. I check all the connections. I make sure they're all tight. Make sure we don't have any oxidation on them. And if we do, I clean them, put them back together, and always use a good quality spray treatment on your battery terminals. The best thing to do is you can buy it at AutoZone and other places like that. It comes in a spray can like spray paint. After you clean everything, spray those terminals and put a little sealer over the top of them, and they're a lot less likely to corrode. The second thing I do, I always check my fuel system. Now, my boat has a fuel water separator on the outside, and it has a fuel water separator underneath the cowling. Most of your modern engines have a fuel water separator built into it underneath the cowling. They'll have 2 or 3 different fuel filters. Always check those filters. Always check that fuel water separator. And the reason why, during this time of year, if you have a fuel water separator, it just has a little bit of water in it. It don't have to have a lot. If it has any water in it at all, let's say it's got a quarter full, it's not going to set the alarm off because your motor can still run fine with that much water. It ain't going to get up high enough to get in the pickup. But here's the problem. Come wintertime, that water turns into ice. The minute it turns into ice, it expands. It'll seal off that entire filter. If it seals off the filter, then you don't get any gas to your motor. So all of a sudden, you got a motor that's running perfectly fine. And even when you get there in the morning, you start the motor, it's got all that extra gas above the fuel, above the blockage. That gas gets picked up by the fuel pumps. The motor seems like it's going to run fine. You blast off or you take off to go fishing, and then all of a sudden your motor dies, it's starving for fuel. You pump the bulb, you're getting a good solid bulb. Problem is, that bulb is pumping that fuel against the blockage in the fuel line of ice. So always check those fuel water separators. My boat has 2. Has one on the outside on the firewall, and it has another one inside the cowling. Change those. It's an easy thing to do. Every winter, that's part of my normal routine. I pull both of the fuel water separators off. I empty the one because it's reusable. The one that's on the cowling is a screw-in canister type. I take it off, throw it away. Empty the fuel into a container, and then throw the filter away. As you can see, it's just a simple screw-in style canister fuel water separator. This thing will get water in it. Sometimes they'll fill up. That pickup inside there is about this high. If they get water in them too much, what'll happen, it will actually freeze into a block of ice, blocking all the fuel from getting to the motor. You'll pump on this, and you won't be drawing any fuel, and you'll see your bulb collapse. That is if it's on this spot. Now, if you have it in the motor compartment, so here on my Suzuki, you can see where the other fuel water separator is located. It's right behind the cowling right here. Real simple to get to. You can take off 4 or 5 screws and that whole side plate pops right off. Well, if that thing gets blocked or if it gets filled up with water that turns to ice, So what'll happen is you'll have a good solid bulb when you pump it up, but the fuel's not getting to the fuel pump. It's being blocked right there. Simple procedure. Just unscrew it, dump the water out of it, and screw it right back on. Takes about 10 minutes to do it. The third thing I always check come wintertime. I check it during the summer, but again, when temperatures start to drop, I always check it. And I'll even periodically check this a couple times during the winter. It's your lower unit. There is nothing worse than to show up to a boat ramp, get out, get your boat ready, back it down the water, go to hit the starter, motor won't turn over. You hear it click, sounds like it's turning over. First thing that pops in a person's mind, my battery's dead. Again, at this tournament we had that day, there was 3 different boats, couldn't get their motors to start. All 3 of them, the lower units had enough water in them that they had froze the lower unit solid. So now the motor can't even turn over. And even if you can get the motor to turn over, because it's at the top, you got separate gears in there. If you do get the motor to turn over, we had one person that threw their boat in gear. The minute they threw the boat in gear, it cracked the lower unit casing because the water had frozen to a solid block of ice inside the lower unit. So what I do is I will take the lower unit, when I get done fishing, even in the wintertime, summertime, I always do it. When I pull the boat into my shed, I lower the motor all the way down. That drains all the water that's caught inside the exhaust port. Drain all that water out, I leave the motor down. Now, when I get ready to do my servicing, I always do this a couple of hours before I'm gonna do the service. The reason why, you got 2 screws on most lower units. You got one on the top and you got one on the bottom. What you do, leave the one in the top in. Don't take it out, because what that'll do is it'll cause a little vacuum and you won't lose much oil when you go to do this procedure. So then you take the lower screw, have the motor tilted where it's pretty much pointing straight down, and all I do, I don't want to lose much of my oil. I'm not really checking to see if I got oil. If I was checking to see the oil level, I would take the top screw out. But since I'm just checking for water, what you do is you just take that lower screw off, back it out. When you back it out, if there's any water in there, that water will be right there at the bottom. That's the reason why I say you want to get that screw at the lowest point of that lower unit. You back that screw up, if all you see is oil run out, you're fine. Screw it right back in. Now, when you back that screw out, if you start to see little drops of water, or you see a bunch of water come out before you start seeing oil, you've got an issue. Now, if you see a couple drops come out and then it stops and you got oil, you're probably gonna be okay on the short term. But I wouldn't let that go very long. You need to go ahead and service the lower unit. Because again, wintertime is when things are gonna break down. Those oil seals, they start to shrink. When they start to shrink, they get a little bit more gap, the tolerances go away, the rubber gets hard. So if you're gonna have a leak in your lower unit, it's most of the time always gonna be in the wintertime. And while you're doing this, if you look around like me, I always take my prop nut off, pull the prop off, check it for fishing line, and I check that seal. It takes 10 minutes to do this, and it can save you a world of headaches. The 4th thing to always do come wintertime, and I've seen this happen so many times, like I say, especially when you're having a tournament blasting off at 6 o'clock in the morning, the steering wheel will lock up. People can't get the steering to move. Now, a lot of your modern boats have switched over to the hydraulic steering. They are great. It is worth the money to do. My boat don't have it yet, but it will have it soon. But, and say, if you still have the old cable drive system, even for your shifter and your throttle, if you still have the cable drive system, you need to check this and service it come wintertime. All you have to do, and again, it's a simple procedure. It's part of your wintertime routine. If you do it, then you'll never have an issue. But what happens is water will get inside that sleeve where that ram is that turns the boat left and right. You have an outer sleeve and you have the ram that goes through it. You're out running a boat, water splashing, it gets up on there, it gets inside that ram. Well, believe it or not, I've seen people get that water up inside there and get up that morning, go to try to turn the steering wheel, it is froze solid, cannot get it to move. So what do? Start trying to yank on it to get it to move, grabbing the motor, trying to get it to move. And it's amazing how many times they will break that 1/4 inch stainless steel cable that's running to that. Once you break it, you're done. Your day is finished. Now, what you can do to kind of help prevent this and to help this situation, once it's done, it's done. But what you can do to prevent it from happening is always lubricate that tube. If you'll look, there's a Zerk fitting on it that you hook an actual pump lubrication gun to, and just pump that thing full of grease. Pump it full of grease, turn it all the way to the left, pump a little more grease in it, turn it all the way to the right, because what you're trying to do, you're trying to fill that sleeve up with grease. If there's grease in that sleeve, you ain't got to worry about water and ice getting in there. Again, it's a 5-minute procedure you can do, and it can save you a world of headaches once you get to the lake to go fishing. And the last thing I do is, like I say, I fish a lot of tournaments in the winter, and I just generally go fish in the wintertime. Now, you have pumps in your boat. You have your bilge pumps, you have live well pumps, you have bait take pumps, you have all these different pumps. The most important one of all those, well, I guess we could say the bait tank's pretty important and the live well's pretty important, but the one that can get you sunk pretty quick is that bilge tank pump. So always, always, in the wintertime, get your boat in. I never pull my plug in the summer. I just pump it out when I get to the lake if it gets full of rainwater or whatever. Wintertime, that plug comes out the minute I leave the boat ramp. That way, traveling down the roads, any water that's inside the hull gets out. And always, always check your pump when you get home. If it's 15 degrees outside, it won't take that little thin, if you have an inch thick water in the bottom of your boat, that inch thick water is up inside your bilge pump. Problem is, you're traveling down the road, that water's gonna freeze super quick. If it freezes, it'll freeze that impeller inside your bilge pump. Now, it's not that big a deal, it's not gonna pump, it eventually thaw out while you're on the water. This is true. The only problem is, if you have an automatic float lever that turns your pump on and off, if that float lever gets froze in the up position because it's got water in it, and that pump freezes solid, that pump's gonna try to run. If it tries to run, I have actually seen boats burn up because that pump actually run and the breaker never tripped. So the pump sat there and just held and locked in place until it finally got the wires hot enough that the wires caught on fire. That's rare, and that's probably the rarest case scenario, but it's always safe to check it. And again, you don't want to get out there, get ready, have water in your boat, go to pump the water out, and even if it didn't catch on fire, if that pump's been held in a stationary position and can't run, it'll burn that pump up. And as you know as well as I do, most times those pumps are in a location that they're a pain in the butt to get to. So always turn the pumps on, listen for them, see if they're running. If they're running, you don't hear any gurgling or any water, you know you're fine. Cut the pump off and it'll be good to go the next time you go to the lake. I hope these tips helped you, and I hope they'll save you from having a heartache on the lake come this winter. Don't put your boat up. If you're in the south or in our area here, hey, this is the best time of year to go out and catch crappie, catch catfish, and have a good time. Hopefully this winter I'll be able to put up a lot more videos than I did this past year, but with this COVID thing, it's been a crazy year. If this video helped you or you enjoyed watching it, hey, please comment and let me know. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I'll answer them as soon as I can. Again, thank you as always for watching. I really appreciate it.